I couldn't miss it, and the time was right. So he's definitely still paying attention from up this way, folks.
Right on. Not me. No.
Liked that.
Ah, shit.
Oh no, sorry.
Is this somebody? Maybe it was Ray. Ray, I muted you. Oh, you're fine, Ray.
That's Ray getting us back for when they were on the big during the.
Yeah, we did a show and tell at Elsewhere. Everybody was sharing their practices, and Ray didn't realize that by zooming in, they were about 20 feet wide. So, you know, it was an intimate experience. Just before we begin here, would love to have everybody put in the chat where they're calling in from, and anything they want to share with the group. You know, this is the mingling before the event starts. So, and we usually have people calling in from all over, which is wonderful. And throughout the event, feel free to put comments. Oftentimes, everybody's muted, so we don't actually hear people laugh or respond. So, you know, if I would encourage people to, yeah, use the chat and unmute as a way to feel in the same space. We have Heather from Connecticut, Doug from Greensboro, Laura Levine from Greensboro, Jen in Burlington, Vermont, Topher from New York City, Anna from Greensboro, Michaela from Greensboro, Jess Greensboro, Ray's calling from inside of Elsewhere, Kristen outside of DC, Jasmine in Greensboro, specifically at the site of the 1979 Greensboro Massacre. Jordan Stein from San Francisco, Jordan Green from Greensboro, hello. Gail from Northeast Greensboro, we're getting specific. Kara from Greensboro, Richmond, Claire's calling in from Richmond, 3 hours north of all of us. Jim's calling from Winston-Salem, but no witches were harmed. Nancy is calling from Greensboro. Kate Beaver from Greensboro. And with friends on the back deck. What a treat in December. All right.
Is it being, are we live streaming? Do we make a collective decision?
Yeah, I did it earlier, but it looks like it's not up. I'm going to try it again.
Okay, I just wanted to share it out.
So let me try that again. And then we can get started. Okay, we're live on Facebook.
On the Elsewhere site?
Yes. It's still thinking. Okay. Seems like it should be working now. Somebody want to check?
I see it. Wait.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Dabney says that it looks like it's live on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Jess is going to pause the music. And it's hard to believe that we're at our last Elsewhere Stories of the season. It's been a wild ride here over the last month and a half, 2 months. I've shared before that Elsewhere Stories is kind of mirrors how I've gotten to know Elsewhere since I started in March, just like through storytelling, through the perspectives of so many people that care so much about the organization. And I should just say, my name is Matthew Giddings. I'm the executive director at Elsewhere. And so honored to get to welcome you into April's practice and world and thinking. Like, it's just, I just have to say that, like, there's something larger at work here that brought April into Elsewhere as the Creative Catalyst Fellow, you know, well before we knew about COVID, well before we knew about the uprisings over the summer and the reckoning that is, you know, becoming amplified, and also at a big time of transition for Elsewhere. So to gain a relationship with April, well, I'm new. April has been a part of Elsewhere since 2011, and just brings a really critical and essential perspective to where we're at in the world and where we're at in time and in community. So I'm gonna read a little intro of April in just a minute, because it's really well crafted, and I think that each word was chosen very carefully. So I think that's going to be very helpful for us. Before I do that, I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about Elsewhere. Now, everybody on the call is familiar with the organization, the museum, the artist residency. So the short version is that in 1939, Joe and Sylvia Gray bought this building in downtown Greensboro to sell refurbished furniture, later to run a boarding house, sell army surplus, and in the later years, after Joe passed away, Sylvia began filling the place floor to ceiling with thrift store items. It was both magic and maybe a little disturbing. But after she passed away, it sat untouched for many years. And in the early 2000s, her grandson, George Shear, and co-founders Stephanie Sherman and a bunch of friends came to Greensboro and declared nothing's for sale, and started inviting, you know, artists to come into the space and work with the materials. So over the last 17 years, you know, well over 500 artists have come and lived in the space, have made projects, installations, performances in and around the building, and this incredible collection. It's described as a living museum because it is constantly changing in its rearrangement and its use and its purpose. So, you know, part of the purpose of that that emerged, the mission of Elsewhere, is to build collaborative futures with people and things. So we have the building, we have the stuff. Those are some of the things that we use, and then the people, you know, are the Greensboro community. It's folks like April who have plugged in over the years. It's, you know, these long-term investments in shaping this organization, and always with that future in mind. So really excited for you to get a chance to hear about April's work and April's vision for Elsewhere, for Greensboro, and for the world. I do want to just take a moment to share a land acknowledgement. So I want to note that these statements are in draft and will continue to evolve to better address the realities of stolen Indigenous land and the systematic oppression of our Black citizens. We acknowledge that Elsewhere is on unceded stolen lands of a number of Indigenous peoples, including the Catawba, Yino, Saponi, Chakori, Keawe, Sarachura, and we will grow in how we honor and respect the diverse Indigenous peoples connected to this territory on which we gather. Additionally, this land has borne witness to over 400 years of the enslavement, torture, and systematic mistreatment of African people and their descendants. We ask you to hold a moment of silence for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Drejon Reed, Tony McCade, as well as for the many other lives lost in the legacy of racist violence, which includes the 1979 Greensboro Massacre and the death of Marcus Dion Smith at the hands of Greensboro police. Thank you. Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody who is in Greensboro or nearby knows that there'll be a reception this evening at 7 o'clock in front of the museum. We'll be seeing April's work, get a chance to speak with April and folks at Elsewhere. And we'll be serving hot chocolate from Cookies Coffee and tacos from Crafted Art of the Taco, both local businesses. I also just want to invite you all to mark your calendar for December 18th. We're doing a 24-hour Zoom call called Fortnight. You'll build a cushion and pillow fort in your home and then participate in the most extraordinary Zoom call of your life. So please plan on joining. You're also invited to help us fill that programming schedule. We have quite a lot of airtime. And so we're calling on all available collaborators to be a part of that. You know how to get in touch with me. I will put a link here if you love Elsewhere, if you love our programming, if you want to support the building of collaborative futures, we invite you to consider becoming a sustaining member through Patreon for as little as $3 a month. The cost of one mocha frappuccino with whipped cream and sprinkles. You can instead forego that and change the world, one collaborative future making tool at a time. Now, moving on to the task at hand, the opportunity at hand, the spotlight, which needs to go off of me and on to April as soon as possible. I just want to share that April Parker is Elsewhere's inaugural fellow of our Creative Catalyst Fellowship. She is a cultural worker and architect of Black spaces using public scholarship, radical librarianship, performance art, and direct action. As a community organizer and archivist, April centers the lives, histories, legacies, resiliency, and magic of queer and trans Black people, while working exhaustively at the intersections of social justice movements to create opportunities for institutional accountability, intergenerational relationship building, and creative expressions of resistance. If that wasn't enough, April is a Black queer femme, a revolutionary mama, and a twin. Her heart work of grassroots organizing emphasizes the liberation and prosperity of Black folks. Parker drives movements forward, agitating public discourse to address systematic oppression and institutional racism to uplift Blackness. Since 2011, April's been at the forefront and front lines in Greensboro, serving as a founding member of Black Lives Matter Gate City, Trans Kindred Emergency Fund, and Trans Reparations Project, NC Queer Troublemakers, Queer People of Color Collective, the Triad, as well as the Anti-Racist White Folks and Bayard Rustin Center LGBTQ Symposium. And you get to spend time with April this evening on this call and in person if you're nearby. I would be shocked if you didn't feel honored to be in her presence. And now I pass the mic to April.
Thanks for spending time with me, you all. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen, I think is best. I really appreciate, who is that? Sydney? First of all, you in that glass, that's like all I needed to,
Always.
do to relax. Okay, I am here for it. It is Friday night. I definitely need some love and feedback, y'all. My heart is pitter patter. So I'm gonna share the digital tool that I had shared with you guys in the chat to kind of keep my brain going. And so let me do that now.
I'm gonna reshare that document. So this is kind of like a party favor. April has put together a digital treat for you to keep. So I'm gonna post it here.
Okay, and now I have to share my screen. I don't know where it is. Okay, I'm just gonna share it. Can you all, what can you see? Let me see. There it is.
Maybe just while you're getting set up, we could take a minute to thank April, help me out here.
What?
The Creative Callus Fellowship,
What about it?
the Tremaine Foundation.
Right, shout out to them.
Tremaine Foundation, and we have the UNC Winston-Salem
Keenan Institute.
Oh, that's what you were asking me? Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't get that alley-oop.
And also the VF Foundation is providing support for the Creative Callus work.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everybody who is a member and a supporter of Elsewhere, and a fan and an audience member. We appreciate all of the support.
There's also a bunch of participants and community members that were active, a part of this, what is it, 6 months fellowship, y'all. So yeah, shout out to y'all. Thank you for coming. Okay, so like Matthew said, I came to be in Elsewhere land in 2011. I moved, so I've been here for about a decade. Well, no, I've been here for a decade. And so I kind of did like a tarot card reading, if y'all can follow with me. So I'm doing a past, present, and future spread. And they're not in the order. It is in draft. And I don't know if it's going to slow down enough for me to tell you. That's what the issue is with me. I want to slow it down. So let me see how I can do that. I don't know if I can. Okay. So my work with Elsewhere has been, I came in, I was born and raised in Jersey. My entire adult life has been spent in the South. So I always tell folks that I'm not of the South. I'm not from the South, but I'm definitely of the South, with folks from both Virginia and North Carolina. And so I came in and I just needed somewhere kitschy. You know, I'm from Jersey, New York. You know, I was, in New York when I was real young. And I naturally just gravitated to Elsewhere, being downtown and being easily accessible. And I started volunteering and sweeping the floor. And that's always really powerful for me because I feel like it was really grounding. I also think there's larger implications when it comes to a white person, a Black person in a historically white space. And at that time, I might have been the only Black person that was doing work in Elsewhere in that way, so yeah, I actually started and completed and earned my graduate degree. I was paid to go to school to be a Black ass librarian. So I was an ACE scholar and I finished it at UNCG, North Carolina. And I think what happened was Elsewhere was having, they were trying to use tools to catalog some of the library collection. And so I just jumped at it. And after a while, I just started doing a bunch of programs. So I think what my community organizing and using programming and art and all of those things, that came from the need of just wanting to centralize a Black queer community. And this was at a time where you couldn't really even Google representation. Now we have brilliant queer Black folks that have done such amazing work, and we have some just brilliant movement leaders and thought leaders. And I'm very thankful for them, but at that time it was rare. And so we used Elsewhere a lot as our political home once we started doing that work. So first of all, this Prezi will show you all of the work that I did for the first 2 years in my inception, and it's actually a product of my master's thesis. And so I actually presented it at Elsewhere. And so you can take a look at that. Why that's important. Elsewhere has always been a place that I never really identified as an artist. And then, but until I went to Elsewhere, where I learned that whenever you touch something, you become a part of the story, right? And there were so many things that were really nostalgic, but there was this ever changing. So it was both past and future. And so we live in a really historic space in Greensboro, but there's not too many spaces outside of Elsewhere that I can really ground myself that in like a futuristic, like it could be space. And so I've been really interested in that duality of time and space, which doesn't really exist. I wish I can get, I don't know how, let me see what I can do. Maybe if I make it smaller, it'll do what I want it to do. I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to see if I can do it with my, anyway. I just want to be able to, so I did establish the Queer People of Color Collective. This is outside of Elsewhere. We would hold meetings. Elsewhere, the Queer People of Color Collective is the work that I originally did before we started Black Lives Matter. And we had a space in Arlington, which is a historical space, for about 2 or 3 years. And so we live in this like Freedom Lane kind of area. And so when that started happening, and I also started working on MLK, a lot of y'all are from Greensboro, so you know the things that I'm shouting out: South Side, Old Ashboro, you know what I'm saying? To me, I was never really interested as a person with the collection necessarily Elsewhere. It was really just the building and the structure and like where it was socially, politically, and geographically in Greensboro, if that makes sense. And so I am thinking about what is this artistry? And so I'm trying to show you a picture of how it has influenced me elsewhere, because I started thinking about how you arrange things as being art. And I'm like a killer. I love the way I create my home. I can't do it. It's so upsetting. And if you guys click through it, I have a home. I mean, I have a picture. I mean, you can see it. Start all over. How I arrange things in my home is art. And so those were the catalysts to me feeling artsy, to me feeling like I had a stake in Greensboro, Elsewhere, and the fact that I can't see my
should we all open this and we can follow along in the document?
Oh, I got it. Thanks, y'all. I needed this.
Oh,
Thank God.
oh, look.
Go. Exactly. It's a lot of stuff I wanted to show you all. So the We Are the Part of the Story was my first real work, and it was basically connecting all of these spaces in Greensboro to basically say queer Black people have always been a part of the story. And that was prompted by Elsewhere, me reading Bell Hook's Sense of Belonging, essentially that we always have history and we're always a part of, and just thinking about Sankofa. Elsewhere really reminds me of the African principle, Sankofa, where we are learning from our history to apply it. I always apply it to the present day movement work. And so all of that is detailed in this. And so you'll just see, here's Chris Kennedy. I started to do my work with I Don't Do Boxes in, I did it again. How did I do it? Oh, there it is. Chris Kennedy was one of the original education folks at Elsewhere, did a really amazing job. And Chris actually, in this I Don't Do Boxes right here, you guys can go in and hear audio. I actually brought the Lesbian Her Story archives to several campuses from Brooklyn here. Here's my house, y'all. This is my new home that I just bought because I'm trying to build Black generational wealth. Snap, snaps. And this is my cupboard in my pantry, and I just love it. And it just makes me feel like I'm an artist and I make things beautiful, you know? So
And April, you said that was something that you learned from Elsewhere and was a part of your, like, developing your identity as an artist, right?
yeah, totally. Like how I arrange things, where am I in this story? Transparency. Some of my thesis originally was going to be critiquing Elsewhere around being a space of only white folks. I always thought that I had to change my outfit before I went to Elsewhere, like, you know, edgy enough or something. And so it wasn't, I didn't start off as someone who owned the space, you know what I'm saying? It was a slow crawl into doing that work. And so, but there was the magic to it that I wanted to connect to. So like this picture is an image of Queerly Beloved, which is an LGBTQ literature circle. And a lot of my, it's not because, I mean, not just because I'm a librarian that I love books. Yes, I love books, but that I believe in bibliotherapy, which is the healing through books. And you all do that, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's sharing a title with someone who might be struggling with something, or a book club, or reading out loud with your partner. Those are all forms of bibliotherapy. And so we kind of brought that into, and this was the first book club that Elsewhere had ever hosted. So that was one of the first like Black queer community events that I think were like outside of I Don't Do Boxes, and Queer Lab started shortly after. So I've been a part of this. I think the history in it is basically looking at, look, Kristen, here you are. And so the past is,
Mhm.
I call this Protest Echoed. And this is one of the first times I think that they might have let somebody take the picture.
Mhm.
So this was at the height of the first Black Lives Matter uprising, 2014, 2015, and local leaders, Irving Allen, and of course our love that's on the line. What I see us do in our art of protest and pushing back, there were these instances where we were replicating history in ways. We shut down Elm Street in 2014. That actually happened in 1963 at that very intersection. And so like, that's what I've always been like, the past is informing the future, and really tapping into making those connections. I love archives, mostly because, you know, people like me aren't often documented in our movement work. And so I just wanted to put this up. These are like folks that were actually in Mississippi who integrated a library, because we often forget that libraries were also built in the image of white supremacy and were segregated. And there were, in fact, Black queer love in the history. So these are my past is kind of influencing. So I'm just trying to give everybody a little taste. Here's me and Guy at Big Bang. So just showing up for Elsewhere. You know, on you know, all of the fundraisings and and just staying connected. Here's this is something that you all want to be interested in. This picture is actually when Trump got elected. We noticed that there was a lot of folks that were needing to connect with local movement work because it was getting really dangerous. There was no sense of direction, and a sense of Trump just got elected and the world erupted. And so we had already been working around prompting white folks to become anti-racist and to do that work. And we had already basically made Elsewhere our political home, in the sense of Black Lives Matter folks and queer people, color collective folks were, we never had to pay entrance fees, or, you know, that was a part of a white institution serving Black leadership and the way of sharing space and supporting us in those ways. And so Elsewhere had already done that as an organization. And this was a night that we called all the folks who wanted to do anti-racist work. That work actually continued for 2 years, and I loved it. And so if you want to know more about that, but as you can see, this is from the kitchen, standing room only, and on the right-hand side to do this work around. So Elsewhere, you know, if there's anybody that's going to do and promote like making anti-racism in the way of being anti-racist and the ideology of that, if there's anybody that's going to do that, I think as far as art institutions are concerned locally, it's going to be Elsewhere. Just because, you know, they're not, you know, nobody's perfect, but we've been doing this for a long time. So anyway, there's my past with Elsewhere. You all can take a pic, you know, I'm gonna keep on throwing stuff in this so you can take a look back. Anybody have any questions about the past before I go? No? Okay. I really liked the fact that Elsewhere was always about process over product. It always reminded me of a value that we have in the movement, which is people over money. And so it feels very anti-capitalistic in a way. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so who am I now? What's going on at present moment? Now, this is when you guys get to see the work, right? It's 5:41. I don't even know how long I got. So what I threw in our present reading before I show you the Unveiling Monument picture, which I'm so excited. I actually have not gotten a bug out and talked to people a lot about the collection. So I want to spend a lot of time on that. And I think y'all are going to lose your minds. And I'm really just thrilled about it. And I'm so thankful for everybody who has had a hand in it, truly. So this is where we are at present. I think why I love the fact that I came, first of all, Elsewhere had to pay me as a consultant periodically here and there because we were the only queer Black organization that was local. And so basically all the white LGBTQ folks always had to come through us to do work. And so that's when the consultant, that's like how Black people, Black queer people were paid by nonprofits, right? Just as consultants. And that's very comparable to what you see in present day, with even, you know, the LGBTQ Center of Greensboro being only staffed, permanent staff by white women. and the consultants are always Black. And so those are some things institutionally that we can pay attention to. And I think some of the Unveiling Monument project works to unveil. And so I got the beautiful opportunity to do the work, to continue the work of Heather Hart for the Black Lunch Tables. And where's the address, Matthew? Can you tell them where it is in the
Google, pause.
Yeah, I'll put the intersection in the chat.
I really feel like that's my partner getting on the line. Okay, go mute. And so the Black Lunch Table is essentially a space that Heather Hart was curating. It's a public art structure that it looks like tables. There's a lot of intention that went into building it. Check this website out for all the nuance of it. And basically it just it centers and centralizes people to have political discourse across community organizers, just community, not just, especially community, and also artists, academics, students, things of that nature. So check that out. So when I first thought about Black Lunch Table, if I wanted to be transparent, I had some feelings about it. I mean, Elsewhere kind of treated me like they're, that one Black friend, like, hey, I got a Black friend. But what happened over time as things started becoming more diverse, we were able to, the conversations got richer. And so when Black Lunch Table came to be presently, I felt like there was not enough investment in Greensboro local art for people to come in and build such a public space in a Black neighborhood. But once I started studying it, my initial scoffing quickly dissipated to thinking that this is a public art structure that acts to remind folks, and it's along the green way. It reminds folks of our values, that we have to have discourse, there has to be conflict, there has to be conversation in our democracy. And so when I started thinking about the utility of that, that's when it really started. I was able to connect it more with my work and multi-mediums of, and they used archives. They worked with Beloved Community Center. That's another political home that I have, which we'll talk about. So I'm very thankful for the work of Heather Hart. It still lives and breathes there now, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Black Lunch Table. But how I continued the work, we'll talk about in a minute. So I'm basically showing you all some, some of the things that influenced me. And some of the things that we did that was a part of the fellowship work that is not a part of the Unveiling Monument collection. So this is the Elsewhere staff. We reactivated it intentionally to we invited the board and the staff and volunteers and everybody to come together and kind of have a visioning session and do some race analysis work. And I think that was powerful in the sense of we got to break bread and kind of deconstruct these hierarchies that often are in our institutions. And so let me just speak freely for a minute while I'm talking to y'all about this stuff, is because there's a couple of things that I hope to attend to. The fact that we were in COVID during my residency really affected how I came into the work. I always wanted to do a lot of social distancing and something between a hybrid of both, virtually and physically. So it's like we partnered with baby Black art, I'm sorry, books and Black youth. And we did a book drive. That was brilliant. We there was just a bunch of things that we were able to accomplish using and getting really creative because of COVID. So the programming was really rich. Like, even though Elsewhere's doors have been closed till March, we were in the paper all summer because it was just an uprising and we were able to make those connections. And so what I did in the fellowship, and I'll tell you why I did it, and then we'll go on to the thing. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. Basically, when everybody was putting up those murals downtown, I hated them. I thought they made white people feel good. I think that they suppressed the conversation, and I really think that they were pieces of wood that protected white property from Black rage. And so I just wasn't here for it. I left Matthew and Travis alone for 2 weeks though. And they were so excited and all their white good intentions to start this beautiful, paying Black artists to do our butterfly board and the artist, what is it? What is Sonny's and them? Sonny, artist block.
Artist block, yeah.
Jesus, no way. So anyway, so I was just like, okay, so downtown is becoming this coloring book in the height of Black, injustice. And so what's going on? And Greensboro became this liberal place where they were using art in such a manipulative way that we were going to, in the height of COVID, further this transactionary white gig. I pay you, you give me your body of work, and then go away, and so we can build social and political capital on your back. And I really am thankful for everybody. So even though it's a both and for me, I'm not a passive lover and a radical critic, right? So I rolled up my sleeves enough to do the work to kind of push back on some of that stuff. You can't just talk shit without doing the work. And so we wanted to further, if knowing this history of Elsewhere, that they acted as a hub during the uprising for supplies for the folks that were in the ground. I'm 38 now. Am I 38? I'm 37. I'm 37. And that's a long time. That's a big difference between me being a chanter in the street at 31, 32 until now. So I had to play a different role. And these beautiful folks at the North Carolina Black Liberation, these art leaders basically sent out, you all have to read this, these demands, you know what I'm saying? And around demanding art equity. And Jessica Moss really gifted, she's the one who gifted me my title of Black Architect, which I love. And so it's basically saying, like, how are historically white institutions going to, be equitable? And so we started talking together as local Black artists. We started the Black Artist Voice Collective for local folks. And I started thinking about so the first initial thought is like, we have to support Black business. Yeah, that's true. But where are the Black businesses when they're not as plentiful as white businesses by design? But I was trying to think about, well, what used to be here and is no longer here, and who is here now that we can support and use and leverage our resources to support them. So we basically decided to do the art, we basically decided to do the porch sessions, which was a Black August drive-in concert where we raised $17,000 for the historic Magnolia house. And those folks, and I don't know why I didn't include any of those pictures because they're absolutely gorgeous, but you'll see why in a minute.
So April, just a
so-
heads up, it's 5:53, and some folks will sign
God.
off at 6. So we can
No
hold
way!
we can hold off on Q&A until 6. But I just am wondering if maybe we
Yeah.
jump ahead to see Unveiling Monuments and understand that work.
Thank you. Yeah, let's
And then we
do
can
that. Sorry, y'all.
people have this document so they can spend some time with it, but we want to see Unveiling Monuments.
Can you drop Unveiling? Where is Unveiling Monuments? Can you do it? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Can you do it?
Yeah, let me grab it here.
How's everybody feeling?
Unmute yourselves.
Freaking great. Love you,
Right,
April.
This is
Love you.
Excellent.
So
We-
I do want to say why it
Put
was important.
Put it in the chat too.
Right, put it in the chat. I do want to say that it was important. The whole thing was around, so I'm going to say this one sentence and it's going to connect everything and you'll see it. I wanted to invest in Black institutions that we are benefiting from as elsewhere, who we have historically partnered with. I mean, the historic Magnolia House was a house to Black artists before integration, and that was the only place that they could stay in Greensboro. And that's not Black history. That is everybody's history, because if it wasn't for segregation, that place would have never existed. And so we have to go ahead and reallocate our resources to make sure they survive, particularly in COVID. So we raised money. I used the photos to raise money for them. And then we also, in this whole fellowship, we also started doing the work as an organization to develop our equity plan. And so once I was done with Black August, we kind of turned inward and started doing things a lot differently. I would actually say more Black. We were infusing Blackness, and not in the ways of integration, because that is not equity. We weren't just sprinkling Black people. It was really talking about culturally Black and how you infuse it. And so, and really being challenged by that. And so that's basically why I did a lot of the work that I did. I also think that Black folks need to know of our history. And then not only that, I'm tired of the disparity model where we're always talking about how Black people
Say that again. April, you slowed
the
down
disparity model.
You slowed down for just a second. That was really important. Please say that again.
I just want just to move away from the disparity model of where Black people are consistently talking about like we're dead and dying, and we are, because Black people live on the east side of Greensboro, live 15 years shorter than white people on the east side. That we have a real need, an urgent need right now to really start focusing on how whiteness and historically, and connecting those dots instead of focusing on the poor Black people, because that's actually by design, instead of connecting the dots of the lineage of whiteness and its violence and how it shows up. So we don't have to go all the way back to the sit-ins. We can connect it all the way to present day of why things are actually happening in real time, you know? And so, yes, because we're doing that anti-racist work, I also wanted to do the Unveiling Monuments it was very spiritual time. Black people were in, and we still are, in consistent grieving and mourning. And it was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? So I started really looking at what happens at funerals, like, and how we had such a good time in cemeteries. We literally did a protest in a cemetery, and it was a blast. You know what I'm saying? So that relief, the ceasing of grieving, to just connect with everybody, a lot of that is explored with Unveiling Monuments. So anyway, I did a bunch of stuff, including this collection that I'm really excited about.
Okay, so April, I just sent you the link, or do you want me to, in the
Yeah,
chat?
can you do it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to enjoy it.
Okay,
I want to see everybody's faces.
okay. I know some folks will have to sign off, but please, if you can, hang out a little bit longer.
Don't sign off.
Don't sign off.
Give me 15 more minutes for the revolution.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
okay, here we go.
Never saw anybody look at this, you guys.
This is the premiere, right?
This is the premiere. Oh, look at my family. Hi, family.
Yeah,
Wait, that's my face, and that's my sibling in love.
scroll down.
Okay, so y'all can read this. Matthew,
Can you see it?
yeah, I can see it. You can skip this. Please stay as long as you guys can, and then I'll go downtown. Are you skipping it, or is it just on a reel?
Wait, can you see everybody's faces? Is
Yeah,
it
I
blocking?
can
Is
see-
it blocking the text?
No.
Okay, super. All right, you just say when you want me to skip to the next thing.
Okay, Sunday sermon. This is what I didn't tell you all. This is very important. Blackness is the archetype. We are the architects of Black futures and space. We honor and archive the work of those who came before us. We are healed in our history. We collectively grieve and mourn as Black death is all around us. Our ancestors are amongst us. We sage the streets. We are working to save our sanctuaries. We are the pillars of Black power. We build community. Our porches, kitchen tables, Black autonomous round tables, lunch tables are our Black institutions. We don't have to listen to that right now. And so I wanted to make the connection, y'all, that even though we do not have Black institutional power, we have that Black wealth in the sense of where's our Black institutions? Well, it's our porches. Our entire movements are built on porches. It's our kitchen tables. It's our round tables. And so I started connecting those Black institutions with the Black lunch table and the absence of identifiable Black institutions in Greensboro. All right, hit it. You guys can see this, 6,000 views on Triad City Beats.
You want to play it? Okay, here we go.
You want to play it? It's 6 minutes. I just talk. We'll send them the link. I don't want to, but that red lip though.
We'll send out.
We also can't hear the audio.
We'll send out the link.
Yeah, we'll send the link out.
Okay, next slide. Here we go.
And so I want y'all to really pay attention to the unveil and monument definition. I just think every single word of these definitions, even though the dictionaries are racist as hell, they really speak to the connections of this work. And so okay. So this is unveiling. And so a lot of this is going to be unveiling whiteness. It's going to be exposing. It's going to removing the veil of this pseudo progressiveness that happens in Greensboro that is absolutely false. And the monuments are going to become like, well, you'll see. Yeah. A statue, a building, or other structures commemorating a famous or notable person. I started thinking about the larger conversation that's happening, particularly in the South, with all of the Confederates burning down. If anybody is on Facebook, you lost, let it go. And we're just reclaiming these histories, and you'll see why. Black August, Black women as pillars. So this actually wasn't a photo shoot. We can skip this. I activated the soapbox. This is my mama mentor, and this is actually going to be a continuing part of this work, where I want to have folks who are not necessarily old enough to be elders, but they are most certainly influential in my life in particular. And so she's at her kitchen table. Dina Hayes actually bought, first of all, she's buying up the entire hood, Snapstar. And she also bought the house of Windsor. And so that's when I started thinking, she helps me think about knowing Greensboro, who are the streets named after? Who are the buildings named after? And there will show us a long line of both resilience and violence. And so Dina now bought that house and lives in the house of Old Man Windsor, who was a Black person who bought on Gorell Street, which is now Black. It was white, and 24 hours, the ordinance of Greensboro was sent to where he had to sell his property as an esteemed leader in the community at a loss, at about a $500 loss, which was significant at that time. And so she bought it back. So I just think that those histories are something worth knowing and making all the connections. Okay, thank you, Matthew. This is hard. Okay, so we actually shut the street down. Who shut shit down? We shut shit down. And so a lot of people, I just saw this as a moment to really honor that Black women are the pillars of our community if we're talking about Black institutional power. So many of you that are on the line have really done such incredible work. Greensboro is forever indebted to you, and we're so thankful that you survived. And so I just wanted to take a minute to just like really have us up front. I also, y'all are gonna see a lot of pictures of me. That actually didn't happen in the last uprising. And a lot of that was because I didn't want to be the light-skinned Yankee being a face of a Southern movement. This time around, it was more around documentation for my family, documentation for my archives, for my legacy. So it was a both and for me. Like, I want some pictures. I don't want to be erased, you know. I don't want to, documentation is important. I want to be a part of the archive. I was literally crying. I was so overwhelmed. And the song that was playing was Black Effect by Jay-Z and Beyonce. And we were listening to, and Matthew and other anti-racist white people actually shut down Elm Street to the point where all the participants really thought they were in a photo shoot. And this was a whole demonstration. And so we were just using art and activism and becoming public art. And we were actually the first group of people to do such a thing on the Black Lives Matter street mural. So that was documented really well by Triad City Beats. If you all want to check that out, I'll drop the, that's all of what they did. So, and this is when things kind of died down, you know, y'all. So it's like mothers and caregivers and folks who wanted to be out in the streets, but really couldn't be out in the streets, you know. And so not everything is like a visceral call to the streets. Some things are different and strategic in that way. And so we were able to be mindful and be socially distant. So I just wanted to, you know, lift that up, because the fact of the matter is you will see a lot of our pictures in mask. And I think that that's going to be really powerful for the documentation of this time. And so I started thinking about, in COVID, what was most important, and this is going into the morning drive now. The fact of the matter is why I leaned into the medium of photography when I'm thinking about structures and public art, and how do I create the public art in this medium. It's because we, you know, Vietnam was so powerful in the extent of we really saw the violence, and we saw like how young folks were, you know, how people were really being murdered and negatively affected by war. And we lost that in COVID because we couldn't really see the victims of COVID. We saw some of the data, but data usually means death, and statistics are really your whole damn community, and that gets lost. So we didn't have a lot of images. So I just think that it was powerful to kind of keep our mask on. And it's kind of, you know, Kiara, you see the mask with the money, you know what I'm saying? And so I just thought we had a great time, and we, you know, what was the answer? What was the question? Sydney said, what do I think of the exhibition? You're going to ask me about you're gonna ask me about that thing in the museum. I'm on the board of the library, so I support it. I also think that if it wasn't for the first wave of the Black Lives Matter folks going and doing the work to making sure people understood what Black Lives Matter even is, the museum wouldn't have even had that exhibit. So I want to say that Black Lives Matter is important, but we are a continuum of Black Panther work. We are a continuum of civil rights movements, and we are merely continuing for Black, doing the work of Black to get us free, Black justice, Black liberation, rather. Okay. Oh, also, yes, Kristen, what we saw in this current wave was a lot of cis Black men, you know, being front and center. And that actually was not the case last time. Queer, Black, particularly femme and trans folks, like, we were the leaders in the of the movement. And so this new wave is a little differently because cis men to the front, but I hope they get us free because I'm tired. So, you know. All right, so morning drive was cute. We had like 500, this was a funeral procession that we had 500 cars drive from downtown Greensboro through Aggieland and we were actually the one protest where there was no police presence, and they pulled off because it was a funeral procession. And so we basically found the destination was we filled up the entire cemetery where the victims of the Greensboro massacre lay. And these are my elders. Can we go back to the picture with yeah, that's Maisie Ferguson. That is Reverend Nelson Johnson of Beloved Community Center. And so, you know, when you think about we're in COVID and we're trying to protect the most vulnerable, to be able to create a protest, there you go, Key, in the back, just to be able to create a space for them to be able to participate safely in a large protest and then honor them. And so what I was trying to do was, yes, we were mourning, and yes, it was a funeral procession. I also wanted to make a connection that these people killed were protesters just like us. These folks, and to make the connection that, you know, what happened in and during that time is also connected to what's happening. So just making those connections, because people who were newly activated, they might not have known about the Greensboro massacre. You know what I'm saying? You all are, so so yeah, there's a lot of coverage about that. It's beautiful, isn't it pretty? Okay, so the Hood Memorial, I'm gonna focus on the titles after this, y'all, but here go Ingram Bell. And so, you know, when I think about memorials, we think about the ones when folks are shot and gun violence are affected. And so, you know, you see those spontaneous memorials of balloons and stuffed animals and you know, at the site of where they died. So I wanted to create that. And I basically was like, can you give me a look like Hood Glam? And Ingram really showed up. Okay, so I want to hold on this, and I'm gonna really try to rush y'all. I want to hold right here, yeah. Ingram is also the director of Cure Violence, which they deal with gun violence in our community. And that's not my work, and that's not necessarily the work of Black Lives Matter. But what I did appreciate about it is that they got our tax dollars to fund a community endeavor to address things in the community. So I do believe in snatching back our money for community initiatives. And we appreciate her work. And she's suffering from loss constantly. So I wanted to honor her. And these pictures are just good pictures, but the picture with her kneeling, the significance of that space right here, the saloon, that building was Black owned. During pre-Jim Crow, Jim Crow, pre-integration, and it was thriving. And so we have to think about, you know, what what is what part of Greensboro. So this is basically a monument to Black wealth. This is a memorial to Black wealth and basically the suppression of Black wealth in Greensboro. And this is basically what I wanted to convey in that, because we had we don't want to talk about, because we have marketed ourselves so much about just integration. We don't really have a conversation around integration and some of its failings and how it has harmed Black Greensboro. And this kind of wants to push back on that and saying, you know, by design, you have taken between redlining, you know, unjust banking practices. I want to say Dina Hayes just shared with me an article. What's important about this is that all next to these buildings are like owned by railroads, insurance, and stuff like that. And so Black insurance companies, you know, they were thriving at this time where that building was erected. And you know, just on not to give anybody a lecture, but basically those folks were thriving. They gave back to the Black community. Integration happened. Black people, white people are like, okay, well, maybe we should. And they made Black people customers. So they actually benefited on their discrimination. And because Black people have been unfairly treated for so long, they actually considered it a place of social capital now that white people were trying to market to them. So what did that do? That destroyed the Black banks, that destroyed Black insurance companies. And those were the folks that when people wanted to buy mortgages, start businesses, that's where they went. And so you think about this, you know what I'm saying? Like, not only did you create a system in which you benefited for hundreds of years, then you turn around and actually benefit from the discrimination itself. Like, it's just, it's deep. It's deep, y'all. And so this memorial to Black wealth is trying to illuminate that. Like, we do have stuff. You just did the most. Okay, so porch sessions. Dressed in white. I wanted to have, we saged the streets. This was more of a ceremony. When Black people die, they're very close. We wanted to make sure that their transitions were filled with love and light. We wanted to make connections with the spirits that live all in this particular corridor between Southside and Old Ashboro. It's just so rich. And again, illuminating, this is the hospitality house that was owned by that is owned by Beloved Community Center. So taking pictures on the porches of 2 Black institutions were really important to us. Dina Hayes owns this, the church on Gorell Street. And so we basically had a ceremony of sorts, and often you know what happens with funeral imagery. You know, a lot of folks are wearing Black, but in many cultures that are not, you know, European cultures, a lot of folks are wearing white. So we wanted to do that. Also connecting to our, I'm a witch. And so African spirituality as a means of reclaiming forms of Christianity. You know, y'all can make, what do y'all think? Y'all like it? I like it. So we use these documentation of this ceremony to promote and raise the $17,000 for Magnolia House. So every piece of, every photo that was taken was used for something, or was actually something in place. And so it was the sustainable, it wasn't just a pretty picture on a nice day, you know? It was a tool, it was a resistance.
Oh.
I always forget. Okay, here we go. My body is a Confederate monument. Oh God, this is so much.
Oh.
Can I tell everybody a little bit about it first? Are y'all good? Are y'all down? Okay. There was a lot of influences to this. First of all, I read the piece in the New York Times, which I shared on the in the Padlet that I sent to you all. And the first sentence was, I have rape colored skin. And I just had to, pause on it. And, my family, my sibling-in-law who is on the call, when we were after my grandmother had passed, was able to really just do beautiful work of like sewing in our family tree together. And we had also come to learn that we also had white Confederate soldiers on our Black side. So her describing the fact that we are actually part of this conversation, this is not just for you. And then this was actually in Greensboro, the second Confederate monument that actually stood. It was toppled during the uprising, and then I became the Confederate monument. And so this is also with the veil, it's unveiling the history. You can see the red rose crown as a continuum to the previous work. I don't know. I feel like I am going to, that's on the front page of Tri-City Beats. Please go get a copy. I think that my next work is to really focus on some of these spiritual sculptures, more funeral memorial symbolism. I was also influenced by Harriet Beecher Stowe's poem that I shared with you all. And it started talking about the veil, or mourning veil is the way it was called. And so everything started just connecting, right? The mournings, the veils, the unveiling, like everything was just making so many connections. And I'll probably be making connections about this for years to come. And so yes, that is the key to Gate City. Yes, that is a crystal ball. And so, it's about reflection. It's about truth. It's about actual, not even necessarily being solutions. It's like like I said, that there's a healing in history. But if we Sankofa things, it's right in our face. It's just so blatant. And so I really appreciate the artist who was helping me with this too. Yes, crystal ball. So yeah, I'm gonna keep on studying these things forever, y'all, because I just feel connected to it. That Black joy is an act of resistance. And so there was such beautiful ceremony and grieving that took place. And that's what happens in protest too, just connecting and eating and making decisions at those tables that I spoke of, how to build Black power, how to make anti-racism, a household, identity. Look, y'all, look what I did. Everybody's gonna cry. Everybody's gonna cry. So this is Representative Ralph Johnson, and he passed on election day, before he recognized that he lost, but that's okay because he really won. And I thought, if we want to pause real quick, I want to give a shout out to Representative Ralph Johnson, because he was one of those state elected officials that was always really present locally. And I remember the last conversation that we had, he was actually the only Black leader who called me and was like, hey, April, I really want to learn more about the LGBTQ community. What does this mean? And it just meant everything to me to have someone of his status, you know what I'm saying, in power, and just being at a place of learning from somebody so young. And so I don't think I've ever told that story publicly, but rest in peace. And so our next love is Lewis Beveridge. And so Mr. Beveridge acted as a bridge between elders and the youth. And so we would be amiss to not somebody so young. And so I don't think I've ever told that. Oh, it was feedback. Yeah, so I would be amiss to not honor those that we have lost as most recent. So, and particularly these people were closer to me than some of the others. So why I included this, because I told you I did events at the historic Magnolia house. I included this because of the hat. And so we think about like culturally, what do we do? You know what I'm saying? Look at this baby, Key. Look at the baby. And I wanted to just show the hat because, you know, when my grandma Dot, my grandma Dot passed, the only thing that I was able to take from the house was the hat that I had bought her. And so that was the first time that I had worn it. Was at the big hat barn. So if I want to talk about funerals and processions, I have to talk about the ones that are in my family. And so the community, that space, that hat, it's just, yeah, I had to include it. This is a one slider. We're almost done, y'all. This is Melanda. And so what's so great about this, y'all, is that this is actually a selfie. And it's EC Henderson actually was able to digitize this for me. Oh, Canary Council was the other graphic artist. I worked with 2 graphic artists. I probably worked with like 7 or 8 photographers, and all of them were non-Black women and femme folk because I wanted them. I didn't want the person to doing that work to be a person. I wanted to be a Black woman or femme. I wanted them to be honored and seen. So that was intentional. So anyway, she painted herself gold, and this is to say, you know, to make Black women as a bust, because we actually do not have those kind of monuments in our city, or even we would be hard pressed to find one. So yeah, give them our flowers now. That basically says, you know, honor the folks that are doing the work in the community before they pass. We are on borrowed time. So this is just a reading of me reading that piece, My Body is a Confederate Monument by Carolyn Randall Williams. So we don't have to listen to it right now, but I do suggest everybody did this. Okay, so this is the one that we really have to talk about, and I'm glad we have a little bit of time to talk about it because I'm about to rush. The same white man that made this, and so yes, me wearing the Greensboro shirt was very strategic in the ways of, this was also done during Black August. And so a lot of, this was a Facebook post. And so a lot of the conversation was like, well, why didn't A&T get someone Black to do it? And again, that's the integration model that I feel that just does not serve us. Really, my critique was on white creators, you know, and we will do so many acrobatics to not really hold white folks accountable. And so really it was talking about this white creator who is the best of the best, and this is not a monument that was made in the after any type of war. This was like 2005 or something, you know what I'm saying? And so the February 1 monument with the ANT4 was made, and only 3 or 4 years later, this is like 2007 or something like that, the Nathaniel Green monument was made by the same artist. And so in one sense, this white man made this thing basically centering and honoring Blackness, and then turned around and created something honoring a slave owner. And we like to say Nathaniel Green, oh, he just owned a little bit of slaves, you know, it wasn't his whole life, you know. And so we have that as a history. And so this was really a pushback against white folks creating an artist that benefit and what kind of morality that you have when capitalism is the only thing that might drive you. So this was a big hold, and a lot of people didn't get it either. They were like, so, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I just wanted to make this art, you know. And so, yeah, these have to be filled out because y'all, yeah, you know what? This is times 20. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people that have contributed to this body of work. It's absolutely ridiculous. I appreciate the photographers. I'm so thankful for the coven. Elsewhere in the community. Yeah, so that's my talk, y'all. But I do have one thing I wanted to show you. In the future, where I see elsewhere.
Wait. Everybody unmute yourselves and do that
Right.
again. Unmute yourselves. and we had to keep saying to April, like, this is not the end,
No,
right? This is like progress report, right?
Right.
right. I feel like I think my twin told me a long time ago, because we got some free flowers and I put them together. I think I'm going to start really focusing on flower arrangement as a part of my art and mourning and all of the themes that you see throughout my work. I really want to do that. I really want to focus on more, obviously my witchcraft, obviously the structures, deities. I want to learn all of those things. So that's what I'm going to, and obviously bibliotherapy. But as far as elsewhere is concerned, we actually, part of our equity plan, not only did we pay consultants to help us kind of get our stuff together when it comes to structural racism, and that's an investment worth saying that most people should be making, well, all people need to be making, rather. We also are investing in Black leadership. So I also want to announce that I'm also the inaugural, what is it called? Admin.
We're still working on the title, but something
Right,
like
we need a title.
arts administrator in residence. So
Right,
to
and
build
that was intentional.
to
So
build
I will-
those, yeah.
Good.
Sorry, Matthew, I want to hear you. I'm just going to finish this one sentence.
I
So
got
from
the title.
January-
You tell about what's happening.
Right. So from January to June, because in my fellowship and learning about our institutions, I am still a fly in milk. And we need to have, and elsewhere has only had white men be the directors, and that's racist. And so in order to counteract that, we have created, I will not be in that role forever, but we need to make sure that directors look like me. And so we're going to go ahead and start an art admin job, because leadership is usually white folks. So that's a part of our equity plan.
Sorry.
You're going to take some questions now, April?
Yeah, I need a cigarette. Okay.
Put questions in the chat or just unmute yourselves.
I got a question.
Okay, go ahead.
April, correct me if I'm wrong. Earlier, you had mentioned before when you said you know that you're a witch. You had mentioned about reclaiming forms of Christianity. I was kind of curious, like, in what ways did you mean by that?
I mean that there's so many things that we name as one thing, and it's really the origins are another. And so, I do think that it's like all the same thing. I just don't believe in religion more than spirituality. So, in the name of the blood, that ain't nothing but a sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So, and so it's really about unlearning, decolonizing, and reclaiming. And so all of these ideas, I just want to say, if I could just take a nap and read a book, and I would, but my ancestors won't turn me loose. I came into this work after like a year and a half of a real sabbatical, a real recovery work, and sorry, that distracted me. And so I would go to sleep in COVID, take a nap, and then wake up with a vision. And that's what y'all are seeing right now, period. You know what I'm saying? And so often when I'm talking, I feel like I'm always like, did I sound okay? What did I say? Because I really feel like, some of these messages are not my own, and it's definitely being spoken through me. So I want to share with that, because COVID's been great with that. The dreams have been magical and magnificent in those ways. So I'm very thankful. I'm a little disconnected now, but we'll see. We'll see what they say next on the new moon. Maybe they'll talk to me in the new moon.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions, feedback?
What do you think?
Y'all, this is just so beautiful to see. It is so necessary. I'm up here in DC, just feeling all of this, like I said in the chat comments, centering this Black queer femme space. And of course, Elsewhere still continues to be a spiritual home for me as I'm out in the world, and to see that you are doing this work and making these connections and continuing on with some of the things that George and Stephanie started and continue to do. And of course, my work, and of course, there's a lot of influence, and I wish I could be there tonight to put my dad's picture on that altar, because I think of as a native, and I think about being in diaspora and all of us who are in diaspora, because there's so much more to do. And in learning all the things that are happening in this diaspora and things that we're counteracting. So this is necessary for Greensboro, and this is necessary, period. There's people that I'm seeing out in the world that need to continue to see these kinds of expressions and unabated, and seeing it through the art world, seeing it through the political spaces, and just seeing it in general, and then owning it for ourselves as Black people.
Kristen, if you send us a photo, we'll print it out and put it on the altar for you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Fran.
What else do you need April to know? We need to hear from you here.
I was gonna say, if no one else has anything else, I have one more thing to add.
Well,
You know how I am, April.
I know.
I have one little tidbit because, and I actually had this epiphany sort of conversation, and April may have some clue as to where I'm going. She talked about, April and I have had this wonderful connection for years. And she came to my backyard one day and we had a serious conversation. And this is years. She was years ago in the trenches. And I told her to really focus on her. And I'm grateful for being the space to be open. Because lots of times when we as artists are out here, we don't have the intimate spaces to be able to build ourselves back up. So April used community in a most viable and wonderful way to both take from and feed her, so she can then again feed us. Because she didn't forget that she was a part of the community. She really did not. And she did a lot of growing. And I can say that because, honey,
Baby.
woo, April did a lot of growing. But that growth is what we see. If you had asked me like 5 years ago that you, girl, bye, I would have been like, nah, April gonna be doing some other work. This is who you are, dear heart. And I am immensely proud and grateful to be a part and to watch you grow this way. And I'm gonna be down there in a little while. But I really want to say that I'm extremely proud of you, like extremely so. So love you, girl.
Love you. Oh, Lord Jesus. Somebody say something mean. Thank you.
April, to add on to that, interesting is not enough to describe the work that you're doing. And of course, it's impactful. And I'm just thinking about where it continues and what other avenues, to go back on what I think you said earlier about this idea of holding artists accountable. And I think about it, particularly white artists accountable for things like with what that particular artist had done. And, I think about that situation and where in that system are people not speaking where they should have spoken. And maybe not in that particular instance, but in many other instances, or in how artists keep getting commissions and finding work. Because we all got to make money, but at what point should we, or is there where we can just build a line where it's like, I know there's money involved in this, but I don't feel right with this. Yeah.
I dig it. I understand. I don't have all of those answers, but what I do know as far as Greensboro is concerned, we can really benefit from the work of the North Carolina Black Art Collective that's on that Padlet. I think that they give language that we could really use to start having a shared understanding, because there are people who can be exploited by the vulturism of nonprofits, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to like sing on the street, we'll give you 250. I mean, somebody who has been affected negatively to COVID would do a lot less, you know, a lot more for less. So, you know, I do understand, like, hold the line, like, some, you know, make sure that you know your worth. But I think that's our work. So we can build a base where folks have shared understanding, shared language, and that we can kind of identify those goals collectively. And I think that the Black Artists Collective in Greensboro that we started with Princess, Sunny, just local Black art leaders. I think that those are really a place where we should start centralizing, Lavinia. I don't know. There's been people who have been in these circles for a lot longer than me. And I think that that would be like just where are our hard lines, you know what I'm saying? So I think that is the future work, you know, because Greensboro, I don't think that we have that same understanding as a larger city like Charlotte or Durham, particularly.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look at these.
I'm going to save the chat for you, April. We actually have a reception to go to in front of Elsewhere. I hope everybody who's in town will come and have some hot chocolate, add something to the altar. Kristen, you're going to send us a photo to print, and we'll see you downtown for a worthy contribution to Festival of Lights, an altar for community mourning, and a celebration of April and her incredible work. So I will send a follow-up email with this recording so you can share it with folks. Links to all of the stuff that was referenced tonight. Please spread the word about April's work. We want it on a national stage. We need help getting it there. The work is more than worthy, and it is growing. So that is part of the work ahead. There's internal and external work ahead that's all very exciting.
If you all do not want to get out the cars too, we can grab whatever you want for us to lay on the altar, and the Unveiling Monument is going to be projected from the stage.
Yes, and tacos are individually wrapped, so you can get that to go too.
Yeah, grab and go. We have how many tacos from shout out to Crafted?
We got 65 tacos, so we're loaded. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Please unmute yourselves and give April a huge round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
A shout
Yes.
out. Thank you.
I wanted to say
Thank you, April.
April, thank you.
Yes, love you.
Can I get the chat though? I want to get the feedback in the chat. Do I get?
I'm going to save everything.
Okay.
And you can read it later at your leisure. Please join us on December 18th for a 24-hour extravaganza of a Zoom call called Fortnight in your pajamas from your home cushion and blanket forts. And please consider becoming a member of Elsewhere for as little as $3 a month through Patreon. It's a really, really easy way to build the collaborative futures that we need. And as you can tell, having April on the team to shape the future is more than a blessing. So thank you all for being a part of this.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all for having us.
Kristen.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.